at the end of the day, you got to coach with your eyes, and you're working with novice lifters. I don't care.
Right.
The best lifter I have is a novice lifter. Yeah. People are like, no. He's been
elite athlete and elite lifter are big separation in the college world. And I don't care what he might be NFL bound, but he is a novice in the weight room.
Exactly. And that's my point. I tell you guys all the time, like, I don't care what you bench press. Okay. Tell me this. All right, Joe Lasco, tell me this. What is the optimal back squat a running back in college needs to have to be the best running back in the country? What's that number?
Oh God, this is
whatever the number is that makes you the best player in the country.
Yeah, and what's that number? I don't know.
We don't know.
I know it's probably more than they squat right this second. So we're going to keep getting stronger.
Well, it's funny because you bring that up, and I ask almost every strength. I was going to ask you this eventually, but I asked Ryan Davis the same thing. It's like, at what point? Because he was there. I don't know. Maybe you were there at the time. The Trent Richardson.
Yeah.
Like squat was like 650. It's like Scott Cochran's like, no, we're not going to squat anymore. And I remember at James Madison, we're thinking like, well, that's crazy. And then the years down the road, like I'm like 24, 25, like you're at Westside for a couple of years. Like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense because you just don't need it. Yeah, if you're already a freak, then why don't you take that energy, put it towards other things? Because this is just SPP, GPP for what you do in your sport. Again, Absolutely. You're a novice lifter. So why do we care about this running back benching 600 pounds? Everything when a stiff arm is, you don't need to put that much out really if you know what you're doing.
Exactly. Especially if the elbow is locked out. It's not even, it's really more.
It's nothing. It's
a plank.
Jacket. Yeah.
It's working a plank or a Bosu ball explosive push up and landing with your arms, like this. Like the practical application is what we talked about, right? We're training soft tissue to make sure make sure stuff doesn't explode, right? When you make contact. That's all we're doing. We're training joint systems to handle enough intensity that they don't just from the inside out. I don't care what your back squat, bench press, power clean is. I don't care. Look, I got my video of myself bench pressing 500 pounds. You're not impressing me with your bench press. You know why? Because every 500 pound bench I've seen in a football weight room is 300 plus pounds. I weighed 258 when I did that. I don't care what you can bench press. I don't care. You guys aren't impressed that I bench press 500 pounds. That's why I'm not showing you the video right now. Okay. So nobody cares. Nobody cares what you squat. I want to see you break a tackle. Look, Nick Chubb squatted 675. It was insane. Still tore his knee up.
Yeah.
Came back, healed 100%. What does he squat now? Who knows? Who cares?
He's still stud.
Well, and that's the thing that I think needs to be pointed out for athletes, because young athletes coming in with grandiose dreams of doing something beyond their college days have this notion that maybe a number on some lift or multiple lifts or in a combine test, which that could maybe be argued a little bit, is going to make their career. If they come in benching 315 and think, if I can get to that number, I can go to the NFL or something like that. Those are ideas in their head. If you can do a good job of recognizing that is not it, that's not the answer. You might bench that much and you might be a better football player doing that, or whatever sport you're playing, but that is not likely. We're going to get you a little bit better and continue to do it as it transfers over into being, likely more explosive and faster. But there's a point of diminishing return. A lot of people, if they're working hard, they will reach that. And then it's a matter of, fine tuning those upper end, power and speed qualities that really carry over to.
Well, I had dinner with an assistant GM of one of the NFL teams Wednesday night after our pro day. And one of the things that we were talking about was, I asked him, what are you really looking for? What do you really pro day? We all know that it's ridiculous.
Yep.
What are you really looking for? And I'm going to tell you what I told him I thought. I'm not going to share too much of what he said, but
okay.
I said, I feel like pro day, you're basically, it's the first time these athletes don't have a coach on their 24/7, 24/7. And they want to see who, without being prodded and poked, went out and trained and was in great shape and actually prepared to do these simple drills that have been happening for 100 years or 70 years or whatever it is. All right. And he didn't disagree with that, but he said there's a couple of metrics that we really look at. So we talked a lot about the 40, and there's a big push right now in strength and conditioning circles right now. Why are we still doing a 40-yard dash with a hand time?
Okay? Yeah, exactly.
JB Marin was one of the guys, and Ole, the guy that's the 1080 sprint and Dynaspeed or whatever. There's a big debate happening on Twitter right now, and they're absolutely right. But my point to them is because they have 100 years of data to compare it to. And then it just dawned on me. I'm like, well, why aren't they collecting new data? Not using it, just collecting it. Like, why haven't we for the last 10 years been using laser timing, but just keep relying on the hand timing like we've been doing until we have a large enough data set for it to matter? Like, why is that not happening?
Because there's an 80-year-old scout at Jacksonville that his hand time is what we've based every athlete that's come through for the last 50 years.
Yeah.
We got to stay to the standard now.
But I agree with you. And you can do that. You can stay with that standard. But if you're collecting data in a parallel data with because what he said was, well, everybody, like if you do the pressure sensor start and the laser timing gate finish, everyone's times are going to be slower.
Oh yeah.
I said, no, everybody's times are going to be exactly what they were going to be regardless.
That's what they should be. Like they'll be accurate now.
Measured more accurately, and actually the times will be more comparable to each other's times. Now, you won't be able to compare it to historical data, at least for a while. So I'm like, dude, if 10 years ago they started collecting this data and now they got 10 years of data, they could transfer it over and they're like, okay, well, running backs. Well, all right, what did Derrick Henry run? Well, Derrick Henry ran a whatever. Well, actually, his actual time was this. Right. So now we can compare his actual time with the actual new data. And you have to rewire your like gut reactions, but like you have actual data to compare to. But you would need at least 5 or 10 years to see if what guys panned out, so that you have like the top tier guys, what they actually hit, and so that was one of the big conversations that we had. And so that's what I asked. I said, well, what's more important to you in the 40? Like because he had said like, we got a GPS unit on these guys while we're working out sometimes. And we said, like, we actually look at what their speeds are on their GPS unit and like what their practice numbers are more so than their 40 time even. And they're looking to see like if your guy's projected at a 4.5 and you run a 4.4 or 4.35, they're that's why, okay, hold on, what's up with this guy? That's cool. Or your guy's supposed to run a 4.5 and you run a 4.7, like but give or take 0.9, 0.09, like who cares, right? But then I started asking him, I said, okay, well, you talked about top speed at practice or whatever. Well, let me ask you this: you got two guys that run the exact same 40 time. Player A runs a 4.5, player B runs a 4.5. But player A hits 22.1 miles per hour and player B hits 21.4. Which guy are you taking? He's like, well, obviously the guy hits the fastest top speed. And I was like, see, I disagree. Because player B, I forget what order I put. I usually write this on the board.
You're good. I know where you're going.
The guy that ran the slower top speed but ran the same 40 time, that tells me he has a higher rate of acceleration and maintains his top speed for longer. They have the same average speed. That means this guy spends more time at or near his top speed. How often do you reach top speed in football? And so I only look, all right, data nerds and statistics people. I'm a huge nerd, so don't get offended by that word either. Data nerds and statisticians. I have 1 year's worth of data from one team to base this off of, so it may not hold true everywhere, but this is what we found. O-line and D-line will reach at or near their top speed. I don't remember what the metric for top speed was. I thought it was standard deviations, but I can't remember. So let's say it's 97% of your top speed. At or near, so at above, at 97% or above, at or near your top speed for less than 10 yards in an entire game. All right, hear me out. An entire game. That's 3.5 to 4 hours, depending on if you're on ESPN or CBS, because CBS loves commercials. Okay.
Yeah. So
that means if I'm a big guy and I run a 40-yard dash in 5 seconds, okay, let's say the average first 10 yards is, of the group is 2 seconds, which would be really slow. Y'all bear with me. That means the last 30 yards is an average of 10 yards per second. So 30 yards in 3 seconds, 10 yards per second. That means for 1 second, 10 yards a second, and they say they average 10 yards at or near their top speed an entire game. That's 1 second out of 3.5 to 4 hour game. What the heck does top speed matter?
Yeah.
Now, go ahead.
Can I ask you this?
Go ahead.
I've always been under the understanding, this for as long as I can remember, that a 40 is really sexy. At the end of the day, unless it's a wide receiver running a go route and he's not covered, or punt returner or something of that nature, doesn't matter. We're really just training. And when I work with people, even at Westside or my facility, like we are worrying about those first 10 yards on the whole. Is that something you try to target a little more, like those first that 5 to 10 yards and then let the rest take care of itself? Or are you really concerned with the whole numbers, the whole shebang into a pro day or sending someone to the draft?
I don't worry about pro day because I mean, like I told my guys, I'll train you for pro day, but I'm not an expert at combine training. Mm-hmm. So you ought to go get an expert that can help you win the drills, right? Because you're competing against the drills. Now, when I was a college athlete, if the NFL was combine training, I'd be a millionaire right now. I tested through the roof, and I was good at it. I couldn't program it. Like I crushed 225. I had a great broad, a great vert. Like if I'd have gone to Indy, I would have been at the top of all of the drill except the 40. I was slow as sin, but the point is, like, combine testing, it was easy, but I'm not an expert at training guys for that. I'm an expert at training guys who are ready to play football games. But to your answer, I don't focus on the first 10 yards and I don't focus on the whole thing. We're looking for power output. Like I'm trying to train attributes. Like if you want to get better at golf, what do you need to do?
Well, if you haven't golfed, you better golf.
You play golf, right?
Yeah.
You want to get better at bench press, what do?
You better bench if you're a bench.
Well, yeah, and I know there's you got to row. Yeah, I know. I'm just
But on the whole, I get it.
Yeah, where do you go first?
Right. If you want to get better at football, you play football. Well, okay. Well, all right. We talk about, it's an acceleration-based sport. That's what we just talked about. Yep. And to accelerate, you need to create a lot of power. Okay. So if you want to get better at power, you go power. Like, what is that? Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, what, you get better at bench by benching. You get better at golf by golfing. You get better at power by powering. What is power? Like, how do you power?
Yeah.
Okay?
Well,
so to answer that, like when it comes to sprinting, like we talk about practical application. Yeah. Power clean, a split jar, all those are power movements. Now, how do you practically apply it? What we found is your highest force production in a sprint happens from the initial start, that moment you create and break that inertia. That's where the highest force is. And that diminishes over the rest of the sprint.